Hello, welcome to this Unreal Engine tutorial. I'm the Festmaster, and today, continuing with part 3 of Blueprint Interactions, I'm going to be building showing you how to build a working button and door using the different types of Blueprint interactions that I covered in the last 2 videos. So to begin with, we're going to be creating in the first person BP Blueprints folder, where you have the first person character, we're going to be creating under Blueprints a blueprint interface and call this interaction interface. And opening this up, double clicking on the new function, we can call this interact and create 2 inputs. The first we can call character, and the second hit. And the first one's type should be a first person character object reference, or whatever your custom character is, and the second should be a hit result. And compile and save this, and we can close it. Now, opening the first person character, I've already disconnected the action fire from the spawn projectile, and so we'll go over and create a new function and call this trace line. And trace line needs one input of a float type called distance, and if we drop down this box, we can set the default value to 600. Now, actually, just on a quick note, if we open the first person HUD blueprint and just bypass this addition node and delete it, and then compile and save, that will save us a headache later on. Now, back in the first person character, on our trace line function, we can search for line trace by channel. And then, forget the first person camera. We need to get the world location and get the forward vector. Now, from the forward vector, we need to multiply by a float, which is our distance, and then add a vector, the world location, plug the world location into start, and the mathed forward vector into end, connect those up, and then a return node, drag the return value onto that node, and then the out hit onto that node. And then we can compile. Now, in the event graph, we will want to use this trace line function, and then hold B, click for a branch, connect it to the return value, break our hit results, get our hit actor, does implement interface, interaction interface, another branch, and then hit actor, interact message. And then we can get a reference to this self to plug that into character, and hit gets plugged into hit. And that's all we need to do for the first person character. Now to build the door. So if we create a new blueprint of an actor class, we can call this door. And opening it up, we can create a cube component, and then already go into scaling, scale it relatively thin, and make it relatively large. Then pull it up so that it's basically on the bottom there, just however you would like a door shape to be. And then add another component, and just a scene component, and have it attached to the root so that your structure is like this. And then drag your cube component onto your scene component so that it's a child of it. And I did that wrong. Attach. The scene component is not correctly centered. Because you want the scene component to be there at the origin of your actor. 0, 0, 0. And then you can put the cube on it. And we can rename this scene component to be door pivot. Now in the event graph, you can just delete everything there, and then get the class settings, implemented interfaces. Nope, that's not what we want to do. We can create a custom event and call this toggle door, and then create a timeline and call this door open close. Double clicking on this timeline, we'll enter the timeline editor and add a float track, and we can call this lerp. And then we want this length to be 1.25, and then if we right click on it, we can add a key to this curve, set its time and value to be 0. Then we can add another key, set its time to be 1.25 and its value to be 1. Then if we click these buttons, this will show us the entire curve. And then back in the event graph, if we right click and search for a flip-flop, we can plug the toggle door into the flip-flop, plug A into play and B into reverse. And then off of lerp, we will search for a float lerp. And then in the viewpoint, we can just check by grabbing the door pivot and bringing it down so that the door is gone. We can notice that it goes to minus 230. So in our event graph, with our lerp value from the timeline plugged into the alpha, we can set B to be minus 230. And then with the reference to the door pivot, we can set relative location, plug that into update, split this struct pin, and plug this into Z. And then if we go here, we can create a new blueprint class and base this on a static mesh actor and call this button. Button, under class settings, we will add a new interface, and it's the interactable interface that we made. And then we can compile and save. And this static mesh component needs to be a cube. And find a where is it? A nice material for this cube. And then in our event graph, we can delete everything and search for interact, add event, event interact. And then we can go into our variables, add a new variable, call this door, and change the type to be a door object reference, and then click the little eye so we can see that. Then if we drag this door out, get door, toggle door. plug that in. Now we created these very the character and hit things because there are many other things that you can do with the event interact, and often these are both very useful for them. And as this is a demonstration of how you would do this, I added those in. Now if we go and place down a door, rotate this so it's easier to see, and place down a button, bring it up, and then we'll notice under default we have a door. You can click the eyedropper and select the door. Then if we play, we click on the button here and it will raise and lower our door. And so this is an example of a practical use without any fancy art assets of both interaction methods that have been discussed in the previous two videos. And this can be made as complicated and fancy as you would like, such as having multiple moving parts for the door, having it swing, making this button look like any particular mesh, even having it change colors. In here, adding some extra code to change the color of the door or the button. And this can be made, as I said, as fancy as you want, using these different methods of interaction. And you can also, with this same method, have other different types of Blueprint interactions, especially between the character and other objects. So that is all for this demonstration of how Blueprint interactions can be done. And I will see you next week for something else.